A good day. Welcome to another episode of Freedom on Fire. I'm your host, Robert Bob TV Brown. Right now, at this current moment, the GOP is trying to cram a tax bill and a tax bill that has not had the opportunity to go before the different organizations to see if it's a good deal for America or not. Currently, right now, majority of America is overwhelmingly opposed of this tax bill. But yet, they don't give a crap just to get a win. Who cares whether it hurts Americans or not? We, the Republicans, need a win to show our base that we're helping them when the base knows they are not helping them. Now, we're going to go in a minute what this bill does. But right now, they're making the bill up as they go along. It says they got the votes. John McCain is down for the deal. He said he's going to vote on it. They say McConnell says Senate has the votes to pass the GOP tax bill. Of course. Senate Republicans locked down the votes Friday for a $1.5 trillion tax bill that bestows massive benefits on corporate America and the wealthy while delivering mixed blessings to everybody else. In other words, they're going to guarantee massive benefits for corporate America. The same corporate America that crushed the economy when George Bush was in office, who extended his tax cut. Obama made it permanent. The same corporations. And it also benefit the wealthy, but when it comes to people like me and you, I don't know what's going to go on. But we're going to talk about that shortly. The legislation was headed for passage later in that day. Let me go back to this. $1.5 trillion. We just gave the military complex a blank check to fight future wars. Wars we shouldn't even be fighting. We're going around picking wars. We extended wars in Africa. What the freak are we doing in Africa? What have the African people did to the United States? They won't give up what they have so we can take it. That's what it is. Why are we in the Middle East anyway? What have Syria done to us? What did Iraq do to us? What did Libya do to us? They selling slaves. They have a slave trade thanks to Obama Clinton's tactic to remove Gaddafi. We came, he saw, and he died. And you want this woman to be your president too? Yeah, Donald Trump is bad. He's crap. Hillary Clinton is bad and crap too. With this, he came, we saw excited. Bill Clinton couldn't even get her that excited. Let me continue to read. The legislation was headed for passage later in the day on the Senate floor. After a few final rounds of deal-making brought key wavering senators on board. We have the votes, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell told reporters after emerging from the meeting with his caucus. Almost simultaneously, Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, a prominent holdout, announced his support for the legislation. That followed a similar announcement early in the day from Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, another Republican. And several hours later, Senator Susan Collins, another Republican from Maine, also moved from an undecided yes. A single GOP holdout remains. Senator Bob Corker, representative Tennessee, Republican in Tennessee, who had fought unsuccessfully to add a deficit containment mechanism to the legislation. Now, the reason Bob Corker is holding off on this is because we are Republicans, are supposed to be Republicans, and we're supposed to be fiscal conservative. This thing is going to cost $1.5 trillion, all to help the elite and hurt the middle class. We just wrote a blank check to the military, and when Bernie Sanders started talking about single-payer health care, is nowhere near that. And it will save people money to put back into the economy. When we start talking about no-cost education, it wasn't the budget for that was nowhere near that. It was more in the billions than the trillions. Yet it would have freed students up to put money back into the economy. So which plan is more effective? Freeing up the middle class so they can boost the economy by putting that money they would have spent on healthcare, education, and things alike into the economy? Or just take care of the rich, cut them where no money will go back into social programs, and let's let the middle class fend for themselves while they're still paying for healthcare, paying to go to school, paying for this, paying for that, no money to put back in the economy, which is the breeding, the true breeding, the true growth of Americana is when the American public is able to put their finances, because they have it, into the commerce sector of our society. A single GOP holdout remains, Senator Bob Corker, who had fought unsuccessfully to add a deficit containment mechanism to the legislation. Later Friday afternoon, a few hours ago, Corker announced he would be voting no. Thank God to Corker. But by then, it no longer mattered. 50 out of 52 state senators were in the yes column, setting up a majority victory for McConnell and President Trump on the legislation that has emerged as their number one goal after their humiliating failure early in the year to repeal the Affordable Care Act. The centerpiece of the GOP plan is a move to lower the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20% when we really need to be bringing it back up to pro-Reagan era. But this is going to start in 2019, so they got a couple years to do this. Hopefully we can take back the House and Senate so we can push back against this and take it back in the majority. And I'm going to deal with this at the end because you Democrats got to get your act together. As an independent, I'm telling you, you got to get your act together because you're hurting the people more than helping. The Senate tax bill will also temporarily cut rates for families, temporarily, and individuals until 2025. But now, if everybody's getting tax cut, how do we fund all these social programs? I don't mind paying taxes. I don't mind that long as it's going into the proper places. I don't want my taxes going to the military complex. I don't want my taxes going to pay for crap like this. It would subject fewer people to the estate tax, but stop short of eliminating that tax altogether. The most recent review of the bill by the Joint Committee of Taxation, Congress nonpartisan tax analysts found that only 44% of taxpayers would see the burden reduced by more than $500 in 2019. But the high earners would fare much better than the poor under the bill. The bill will also repeal the individual mandate from the Affordable Care Act. The tax package still must clear several hurdles before it becomes law. Once the Senate passed the bill, the GOP leaders must reconcile differences between the Senate bill and a version that passed the House several weeks ago. They're optimistic they can do this, but the number of issues must be resolved before they can send the bill to the president's desk. And there will be major implication for the taxes paid by families and individuals based on how those discussion goes. All right, for Trump, a victory on the tax plan would stand as a signal triumph, in sharp contrast with the political troubles beset the White House on the other fronts, especially coming out the same day that the former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with the Russian ambassador. Securing the final few Senate votes forced GOP leaders to add more than $250 billion in tax cuts for individuals and business to their plan. To offset some of the costs, they had to abandon efforts to fully repeal the alternative minimum tax for individuals and companies, according to the brief summary of the changes that was shared with GOP members. Instead of fully repealing the AMT, They will now try to scale it back. The AMT was put in place in the 1980s as a way to prevent wealthier Americans from using tax deductions to avoid paying tax. Flakes announced his yes vote after he said he had secured leadership backing for two priorities. One relating to how businesses can deduct major investments like equipment purchases, and second involving a solution for immigrants brought illegally to the United States as children. Having secured both of those objectives, I am pleased to announce I will vote to support the tax reform bill, Flake said in the statement. So he was on the fence at first, but he said, if we can get these two things put in, you can get my support. Flake said his deficit's concerns were allayed by a new approach to the bill, expensing deductions, which allows businesses to write off the full cost of investments in equipment and facilities. The change calls for gradually phasing out the break after 5 years instead of abruptly canceling it. That adds $34 billion to the cost of the bill. But Flake said it would save money in the longer term by making lawmakers less likely to extend a break in the face of pressure from business interests. Flake also said the administration and the Senate leaders had agreed to work with him toward the resolution of immigrants brought illegally to this country as children, known as dreamers. These immigrants were granted temporary protections under the Obama administration, which Trump has announced he will revoke in March. Flake is a longtime proponent of reforming immigration laws and wanted to permanently protect the dreamers. He said Vice President Pence had committed to working with him on the issue, though without offering a timeline or a specific solution. Johnson came on board after leadership sweetened the deal for certain businesses whose owners pay taxes through the individual codes rather than at corporate rates. Johnson retained partial ownership in one such pass-through business, and the issue has been a key concern. I appreciate the Senate leadership willingness to work to close the gap between pass-through business and C corporations, Johnson said. The term C corp refers to those businesses that file their taxes under the corporate side of the code. Senate GOP leaders had proposed allowing pass-through owners to deduct 17.4% of their income from their taxes and then pay taxes on the remaining income. Johnson and Senator Stephen Daines of Montana argued for days that this was not generous enough for these businesses. So they want to make sure it's more generous for businesses. And the GOP leaders reluctantly raised the deduction level to 20 points, which add roughly $60 billion to the size of the tax cuts. But Johnson continued holding out. And on Friday, he said the deduction had been raised to 23%, which secured his support. That meant that he and Daines are able to extract $114 billion in tax cuts for these firms in just a few days. $114 billion in tax cuts. Money that we could use to help the working class. Collins said leadership had promised her the bill would protect certain deduction individuals used to lower their tax bills, including on matters relating to medical expense and tax payments to state and local governments. Collins also said leadership had agreed to support passing two bipartisan bills to help stabilize the health insurance system set up under the Affordable Care Act. Senate leaders had little margin for error since they can lose only 2 GOP votes and still prevail in the closely divided chamber. Democrats are unanimously opposed to the bill and took turns Friday delivering scorching floor speeches, slamming it as a giveaway to the rich. Friday's progress was turnaround for Republicans after the bill hit snags Thursday. An unfavorable economic analyst had inflamed Corker, who was demanding assurance that the bill not add to the deficit. Corker wanted a trigger added to the bill to kick in and raise rates if growth projections weren't met. But the Senate parliamentarian ruled his plan unworkable under the complex rule governing the legislation. The results was a tense standoff Thursday evening as Johnson, Flake, and Corker threatened a last-minute objection to stop the tax bill from passing. This forced GOP leaders to scramble to try to accommodate some of their concerns before the lawmaker finally relented. Negotiations went through the night, but on Friday it emerged that Corker demands would not be met. There will be no trigger in the bill, nor any other mechanism to make up for a $1 trillion deficit increase that congressional scorekeepers said will result from the bill, even when taking into account economic growth. Corker was grim-faced as the outcome became clearly. Corker said, "I'm disappointed. I wanted to get a yes," he said in a statement. "But at the end of the day, I'm not able to cast aside my fiscal concern and vote for legislation that I believe, based on the information I currently have, could deepen the debt burden of future generations." Senator James Lankford, a Republican out of Oklahoma, who also pushed to address deficit issues, said it was disappointing that there would be no mechanism to do so, but instead the bill would produce more growth than most analysts have suggested. He said, "I think it is a stronger bill with a safety net, the just-in-case piece, but that's not what we have," Lankford said. "I'm going to be a yes either way. It's walking the tightrope with a net or without a net. You prefer to have a net, but I think it's going to work. Not all issues..." Yeah, but you never know. If you slip and fall and there's no net, you could die. Not all issues were resolved, and pending amendments promised floor flights in the Senate throughout Friday afternoon. GOP leaders were most worried about an amendment pending from Senator Marco Rubio, Mike Lee, who were pushing hard for changes that will further expand the child tax credit for low-income families to offset the cost of this expansion. They wanted to allow the corporate rates to move back to up to 22%. Rubio and Lee have not threatened to oppose the tax bill if their concerns weren't met, but they persist in pushing for the change. If Democrats voted with them and the amendment passed, they would create a new headache for leadership to resolve because of the opposition from Trump and conservatives to a corporate rate higher than 20%. So Marco Rubio and Senator Lee said, hey, there got to be something that's going to help parents. We got to help out better with the child tax credit. But we ain't going to push you hard on it. But we think you should do this. But if you don't want it, it's okay. Gutless, no balls, cowards of a Republican. If you really believe that you should extend the child tax credit, you fight for it, you punks. But Rubio, you never had any balls. Mike Lee, you just showed me you don't have balls to stand up against your own party. You scared of Trump still, Rubio? Little Rubio? Rubio and Lee have not threatened to oppose the tax bill if their concerns weren't met. You had the leverage to do it, man. They need every vote they can get. If Democrats, anyway. Now, I'm done on this particular article. Let me stop for a second. All right. This bill is going to really benefit the wealthy. I mentioned that on another video. It's going to definitely benefit most of the people in Congress, because most of the people in Congress are making 6 figures plus. A lot of them making 7 figures. A lot of them married into wealth as senators. John McCain, one of them. They married into wealth. So this tax bill is going to benefit the ultra rich. It's going to benefit anybody who has a parent company that's in the Senate and probably kind of signed papers about the monument clause and gave it to their family. It's definitely going to help out with the state tax. Those whose children stand to benefit off the wealth and fortune that they've created. A lot of them are looking to sit on boards after they get out of office, so they're going to make sure they kiss the butt of the corporate elite and the rich. A lot of them are getting big donations from these corporate mega corporations, so that's another reason why they're fighting. See, the bottom line is those who pull the money strings on these politicians going to get what they want until the people begin to rise up and say, nah, no, no. Now, Marco Rubio and Senator Lee and all these guys, I mean, I respect the other two senators who said, no, you're going to put some kind of mechanism in this thing, because we're supposed to be deficit hawks. We're trying to get the government out of a lot of stuff. And what we're doing is the government is trying to control giving money back to people. And the people might want to give money to the government for particular reasons. Oh. So they're going to push this thing through without debate. We need to have more debates on this subject. We need to have more televised debates. We need to have town halls about this subject. The people are overwhelmingly against this tax bill because it's going to hurt most Americans. It's mixed on the benefit that you're going to get. If you're a single man like me, and you got a side business and you work a job, it'll affect you big time. And the ability to write off this and write off that may not affect you like it would be a person who owns a mega corporation. Of course it won't. So it's mixed for people like you and me. Whether you working class or working class who's trying to build a business on the side, or if you're a small business person, if you're a small business person, you're not bringing in 100,000, it's not going to help you much either.
Hey, this is your boy Bob TV with Freedom on Fire and Rob Report. I want to thank you for watching the webcast. Make sure you share these segments all across your social media network. Like and share, subscribe, and maybe I invite a couple other people to do the same thing. You make the difference. I also want to thank you for those who support this channel through Patreon, whether it's 50 cents to $50 million. It goes right back into what we do here. So like the lights that you're looking at right now, that's because of something that you did. So I really appreciate it. I want to thank my man Meganamic for the Blue Yeti mic, one of the top microphones out right now. He knew I needed the mic, so he blessed me with it. So all of you guys make the difference into this channel growing, and I really want to appreciate you for that. Also, by all means, again, continue to share your comments at the bottom of each video. Just don't get so visceral to the people who may disagree with me or may disagree with you. This calling out name stuff, that's not for this channel. So please try not to call people names, personal names. Now you can call some of the stuff they talk about crap. I say that, but just don't attack people personally. Words really hurt when you start attacking people personally, because these people really believe these things, and you're not gonna take away their belief by calling them names. So please don't do that on this channel. But nevertheless, I appreciate you guys. We're shooting for 2,000 now, so I need your help. So as my pastor would say, reach one, teach one. I mean, let's reach out. You got the information. Make sure you share with other people and try to get them to subscribe to the channel so we can grow and expand. I'm Bob TV. Freedom on Fire. Rob Report. Peace.